Hey guys, it's Bill Kennedy and we are on part 1 of our eye tutorial. We're going to go from taking this sketch all the way into this completed piece of artwork. And if you're new to our channel, we're all about teaching you how to create better, explosive, beautiful artworks. And you can get started by hitting that subscribe button down below. Anyway, I'm not going to keep you guys waiting. We're going to get right to it. Alright guys, to get started, we're going to mix up our first skin tone. And our first skin tone, I'm going to take some burnt sienna, about 12 drops of white, 1 drop of burnt sienna, and just a hint of red for that base color, that peachy light flesh tone. Alright guys, so we're going to come in with our base texture layer, and base paint layer I should say. I am adding textures in there. As you can see, I'm using a dryer sheet to help avoid that plasticky feel, but it's important not to put texture in where there shouldn't be texture in the painting. I will hit some spots a little bit harder with paint just to create some of those wrinkles. Then I will come in with my first erasing layer using a pencil eraser and using my mono sand eraser. I'm going to create some basic textures in there. Notice that we have highlights next to shadows and shadows next to highlights, which is the way it would appear in nature, and that depends on the direction of where your light source is coming from. Once I get those base layer textures in, notice they're a little bit rough, so we come back over there and we come back over it with our same base color of paint, and that knocks those textures back so that they don't stand out so bright. We shouldn't have any bare white in our painting, except for perhaps in the very brightest of highlights. There should not be any white. There's no white in skin tones. Alright guys, so we're going to take the paint that we've already got mixed up. We should have plenty of it left from before. If not, you'll need to mix a little bit more. And then we're just going to add a little bit more red to it to give a little bit more red to that skin tone. And we're going to put our next layer of paint down. Alright guys, now that we've mixed up the second skin tone, we're going to start sculpting in just a little bit of our shape. There will be a shadow underneath the section beneath the eyebrow and above the eyelid. That top crease line you see there, that top crease line, it'll become evident later, is the very top where the eyelid, the very top part of the eyelid where it attaches back to the skin underneath. And we're going to leave paint off in the very lightest areas and add paint in the darker areas. And this color is going to look kind of funny until we start getting other colors around that. And this is the point where you have to trust that the color is right and not rely on your eyes too much. And you'll notice how the color will look entirely different when we start bringing in the shapes of the iris and the pupil and the tear ducts. It will change the appearance of the colors around them completely. So anyway, we're going to continue to add just a little bit of our textures in here and continue to shade our colors we need to, working light to dark. The beauty of that is we do not have to be perfect with our painting as we go along. As we get darker, then we've got to pay more attention and be a little more crisper. Adding just a little bit more highlights before we move on to the next step. Now we're going to mix up a light gray, and we are going to put light gray around the eyeball, and then not covering up the iris or the tear ducts, but we're going to add the gray around the eyeball. Alright guys, now we are going to work on the tear duct and the spot underneath the eye right here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to mix up a very light Pepto-Bismol kind of color pink, and then we're going to go over that with a scarlet for our darker color. So our highlight color is actually going to be a very light pink, not a white. It might have a couple little tiny white highlights in there. And so we're going to cover the bottom side of this eye. We're going to cover the tear duct. Alright guys, here's that light pink layer going in there. And we're going to let that run up into the pupil. As a matter of fact, I'm going to force it into the pupil just a little bit. Let that blend in with that gray, some of that shading there. And we're going to let that run down that eye, because the rolled edge of the eye has a little bit of pink as well to it. And then we're going to put a few more textures in there, our highlights. If we go a little bit too far, then we will just be able to glaze over them again with a little bit more of that pink before we go into the red layer. So it's not that big of a deal. As you'll see, working the highlights around there, that is the section where the eye rolls over. Notice again, we're not having to be very crisp here, because when we start adding the eyelashes, and we have one more layer of skin tones to do after all of this. So anyway, now we're coming in with a little bit of scarlet over there, and what we're going to do is lay off our highlights just a little bit. Then I'm going to take that same scarlet mix, and I'm just going to start freehanding little veins in the eyeball. You can get those little veins all throughout the eyeball and on both sides. And I don't pay attention to exactly where anything necessarily has to go, just very light lines, and you can tell that looks pretty messy. It will clean up. We added a little bit of gray over the top, and then I took that red mix and toned just a little bit more red to that skin tone. All right, guys, as y'all can see, there's nothing I'm doing here that you can't do yourself. All it's going to take is a little bit of practice, a little bit of understanding of color, and you'll be on your way. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will see you on part 2.